Okay, so what is shadow work and what we're covering? Okay, the psychological, the spiritual, the ancestral. Ancestral is part of spiritual, but there's also a physiological element. We'll get into all that. The types of shadows, safe method for dealing with it, an ancestral water meditation to work with it, and divination options. Because when you're doing shadow work, you're asking questions, there are ways of separating yourself from the question. So I'm going to put that out right now, that you can use pendulums, which anybody can have, a chain, a silver chain, with a crystal. You can do 4 shells or 4 pennies, or you can do tarot. So the methods of questioning are vary in how you do your questioning, but you could do it wherever you are, pennies, rocks, stones. Tarot cards get a little more expensive, and that also gets you to a deeper level. With tarot, you can start asking, you get the feedback is much more rich than yes or no. Okay, so let's jump into it. Okay, so we know the shadow work is we're dealing with repressed emotions, desires, wounds. Sometimes there are things we want that we don't even tell ourselves, suppressed desires. This happens sometimes with all kinds of stuff. Women, food, sex, sexuality. We have a lot of stuff repressed inside that we consider not socially acceptable, violence, these things like that. So the physical shadow is an energy gateway that connects to the person, meaning your physical shadow is a gateway that goes into your energy body and other places. Just like every flame can be a gateway to the realm of flame. Every pool of water can be a gateway to other places. Your shadow is also a gateway, if you want to use it that way. So that's the physical shadow. The psychological shadow is what we talk about, the repressed memories, motivations, feelings. The spiritual shadow, it gets ancestral. It's also a different sort of elemental, and it's based with entities and influences. Hey, I see you. We're running. Boom. So let's listen in, and when we get to, we'll open up questions. Okay, the Jungian window. So they're not the Jungian, Johari's window. So basically, there's a window of 4 things: what you know, and about yourself, and then what you keep hidden but know about yourself. That's the know part. Then the parts that is the parts that you don't know about yourself that no one sees, and then the last part is the other part is the part that is hidden that you know. So there's stuff you know that's hidden. There's stuff you don't know that's hidden. There's stuff that people see, and there's stuff that no one sees. Those are the 4 things. Generally, the shadow is all the things that you don't see, and sometimes no one sees, but definitely you don't see it. The 4 quadrants of self. So sometimes people tell you about yourself, and they're things you just don't know, and you sometimes don't want to know. And sometimes the only thing that can help you figure it out is divination. That's that 4th quarter when we go quadrant, when we go delving into the deepness. Okay, types of shadow. Okay, here's where we go. We have, let's say, 4 types of people or selves. They're the mental people, very self-aware, we'll call them magicians. Those people who have vision and positivity, we'll call them the sovereigns, or kings or queens. Warriors are all about results and boundaries. These are the pragmatic people. And then we have the lovers. They're all about emotional connection. So these are the kind of people you have, and they're different. Sometimes they call them the lions, the eagles, the does, which are the like female deer. They like connection. That's how they connect to the lovers. Sovereigns have visions, like the eagle or something like that. Okay, so it's a model they use in a lot of places. These general models also have general sort of weaknesses when we talk about shadows, meaning that those types of ways of being for people often come with certain types of common errors, challenges, weaknesses. So what are we talking about? The magician's shadow is That's not right. Is that right? No. I see an error. Failed the card. Okay. And I open the other file. Okie dokie. Let me go find it real quickly. So basically, let's go with the sovereign. The sovereign is, their weakness could be an idolizer. They dream without following up. Okay? That's the idolizer, like, shadow weakness, or weakness, that person. They could be a visionary without follow-up. The strength is they can inspire, they can you know, make people motivate. They're triggered by limitations, whatever they see. They hit a limitation and they stop. Their healing pathways to add structure to their vision. Okay. Another type of sovereign shadow is the effector. They perform, they overwork to avoid vulnerability. They're kind of hiding their soft side. And so the effector, they're motivated, they're charismatic. What triggers them is they feel unappreciated. What they need to do is be authentic and rest. Sovereigns. Some people see it as a leadership model, but it's you know, these are things that you want to see if you identify in yourself. Okay, under the sovereign, there's the fosterer, one who gives to feel needed. We've seen this dysfunction before, some of us, in the philanthropy world. Their strength is they're deeply supporting and nurturing. Their real trigger is feeling unneeded. They have to allow reciprocity. That's the big challenge for them, is that they don't let you have the reciprocity thing going on. Okay, let me jump to something. I gotta go find the corrected version of this. It's gonna take me a minute. Okay. While we're doing this, let's talk about the lover. So the lover shadow. The lover is the person who's all about relationships. But there are different types of dysfunction in that. One is the yielder, who shrinks to avoid outshining. They're deeply compassionate. They're attuned. Their trigger is recognition of success, then they back away. They have to accept personal power. That's like they're the reverse of that. They need to accept personal power. I hear music. Maybe it's
shadow forever run side by side.
That's my thing.
Tales few dare to whisper. Women.
Sorry, that was my computer. I was wondering where that was coming from. Okay, where were we? Lover. So we did the yielder. The next is the relier. Clings to avoid conflict. So the thing about the relier is they're really good at building bonds. But their trigger is abandonment. They feel that, and so when they feel somebody's abandoning them, they just, instead of, dealing, they just cling to avoid conflict. But at the same time, they're good because, the reverse of that is our friend, so they need to strengthen their boundaries. That's their healing path. The releaser. The releaser is like, the reverse. They just run away. And so they're the kind of people that there's an issue emotionally, they just burn bridges and bounce. They need to be grounded in emotional routine. Their trigger is restriction. That's kind of like, okay, I'm going to be sexist and say that's kind of like the chick that, or the woman that in a certain relationship, when you put boundaries on them, they're like, blow up the whole thing. You know, emotional chaos, they rebel. And so their feelings of restriction triggers the rebellious, and then they, you know, everything goes like a balloon. Okay, so that's the lover. We did the warrior. No, we didn't do the warrior. Warrior is about business, about boundaries. Their weakness, well, their shadow behavior is they dominate to maintain control. The strength is they're good at initiating breakthroughs and driving the ball. They react. Their trigger is feeling controlled. Their healing path is learning about intentional collaboration, how to share the steering wheel. The upholder is another type of warrior persona that its shadow is, well, the upholder is the name of the shadow. They're rigid. They fight for righteousness, but they're rigid. Strong sense of duty and integrity is their strength. They feel they're triggered by injustice, but their weakness is rigidity, and they have to practice compassion. A little too puritanical. The other type of shadow behavior is the contester. They are powerful under pressures, they're positive. They avoid weakness, they're aggressive. They avoid what they perceive as being seen as weakness. So that creates, they lack vulnerability. Well, they feel vulnerable. They don't really express their emotions, and therefore they're always contesting. You know, I can't be weak. And many times when they feel vulnerable, they become aggressive instead of slowing down and processing emotions, moving through it. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. The magician, which is funny that I had trouble with that one, because that is actually mine. The funny thing about this stuff, why people don't like to mess with it, because you will eventually see yourself. In fact, if you're doing it, your students will see you too. Anybody who knows you will eventually see you in this kind of work. Can't hide from the truth. And I guess I subconsciously was doing something, because I rid of my own shadow type. That's humorous. So the magician is like, you know, when you think of a tech guru or anybody who's really focuses on being the craftsman of what they do, they call it the magician. They're very intellectual, and they keep trying to get their identity from being very good at what they do. Okay, this type of person, their shadow behavior, sometimes they get too intellectual, they become emotionally withdrawn. So their strength is they stay calm as a cucumber and objective in chaos. But their dysfunction is they're withdrawn emotionally. And their trigger tends to be closeness. You get close to them and they start to withdraw. Their healing is to practice safe vulnerability, to learn how to be vulnerable in safe spaces, engage when it's safe and it's not, and learn how to trust. The optimizer, they avoid commitment by having too many options. That's a shadow behavior. They see multiple solutions. When they feel pressure to decide, that's their trigger. For them, it's about grounded, making small decisions piece by piece to move to the process. Sometimes they see too many options, too many paths, they can't to actually get something done. The alternator is overly cautious. They see many paths, but they can't really decide, not because of many paths, because they're overly cautious. The good side about that is they can detect hidden risks and problems early. So sometimes that shadow is because they're overcautious. In the 80% of the time that they're being overcautious, there's another 20% of the time that they figure out the bomb, the threat, the problem well in advance. And so again, it's They got to trust the shared responsibility and actually learn that other people can be capable. Woo, that's hard for me. Because the people have shown me that they are incapable at times. You got to balance it. So, what do we have to talk about shadows? Shadows are not bad. They're bad when they're out of control. They're bad when they're not being in an appropriate balance. And then they become really destructive or negative. But their core, and somebody challenged me once about this, they have a core good intent of what they're trying to do, but they're not fulfilling that anymore. There's something off the whack. So, from these, it's 4 groups. Each group is really one about relationship stuff, one's about results stuff, one's about vision and leadership stuff, one's about kind of awareness and mentality, problem solving. Which do you see yourself? That's the question. It's kind of what resonates with you, which matches you, and then what support, strength and support you think would help you. And then, of course, what triggers do you have to watch out for? So, you know, I'm not going to ask you, but you put it in your journal. You know, put it in your journal, because what resonates with you? What strength does it have? What trigger do you see yourself falling into? Boom. Okay, warning. Dark side of shadow work. Shadow work has a challenge. If you're not careful, you might accidentally relive a trauma. You may over-identify with negative traits and start making that your identity. You may increase anxiety, guilt, depression. There's potential for overwhelm. There's also the possibility of projecting others. General safety rules. Go slow. Stay present. Don't dive people into serious trauma without support, like somebody knows you're doing it, somebody who has some awareness of that kind of practice, counselors, like priests, sociologists. If you know you have these heavy things, make sure you support you. If you go to, you know, you can do the light stuff by yourself, but if it's really awful stuff, PTSD, you know, battlefield stuff, you might want to get support. But so the idea here for spiritual people is they're trying to attune and optimize themselves. But if you really have a train wreck of a history going on inside of you, it's okay. Get support. Okay. Shadow prompts. Boom. When you're actually in the process, there are things you want to look at, like, ask yourself, like, what am I suppressing? What do I judge in others that reflect me? What childhood wounds are still shaping my reaction? There's a bank of questions I have. I have 13 favorite and then 30 odd, because you can actually do this as once a day during, like, winter solstice for that cycle, or you can just you know, do it on full moons. It's about when you do it. Okay. So let's make hair back. Okay, so that's where we were. We're talking about safety. We're talking about questions to ask. For full journaling, I will send you 13 questions and the 38 questions if you want to do this as a winter solstice thing. Okay, meditation with ancestors. Okay, this is the breakdown. What we do for shadow work to enhance the process, those who've read it, we use ancestral energy. We use elements such as a candle, an obsidian skull, or a glass of water. So these things help us journey in, then they support us. The obsidian skull ideally can be consecrated. Even if it's not consecrated, the very energy of obsidian is about truth, it's about fire from the earth, you know, it's volcanic. And clarity, it's a dark mirror in some practices. It's also a dark mirror. So these are the tools. Boom. So, and you can gather these tools if you want. Get a glass of water, your obsidian skull if you had an ancestral image or an ancestral element from your shrine, and we can do this and ride along. Okay, boom. So, give you a minute to get that if anybody's getting it, or you prepare your mind simply to engage in the process. So now, what happens from here? Okay, so hold on a second. Exit something. Trying to manage my resources. Okay, open this one up. It's in here. Onboarding. Okay, so there's a file some of you have called Shadow Work meditation script. Okay, so if you have a glass of water, really cool little thing to say. Soothing water, water that lifts up all burdens from the heart. Cool water comfort me. Water, let my body be cool. Water, let my mind be cool. Let the good eyes of the ancestors rest upon me. Water that dissolves sorrow. Water that softens anger. Water that opens every path. Spirit of water, make my heart clean. Spirit of water, make my spirit cool. Spirit of water, enter this water here. Let it become a comfort to me. So you say that to your glass of water. Okay? You light your candle. Ideally a black candle, believe it or not. Black is not bad. But you can use a tea type or a little, just a penny candle. And then when you light the candle, you ask that you may your path be cleared. May the light shine for you. May evil fall away from you. You place the candle next to the water. So the water and the candle interact. So these are gateways. Let fire reveal what must be seen. Let water cool that which be healed. Gaze at the flame, reflect across the gaze at the flame, reflecting across the water to create a spiritual gaze. This is the doorway. Making a doorway. Okay, you've created a small fork with a candle and water. Nothing crazy or expensive. Okay, ancestors, known and unknown, stand with me in this work, protect and guide me, reveal to me only what I'm ready to see. Invocation of the ancestors, to have them come in and open. Okay, boom. If you have an obsidian skull, you hold it, you activate it, hold it in your right hand, you breathe into it, and you ask the ancestors to put their clarity and protection in the stone, activate them in the stone, open the hidden gateways. Most of you probably don't have one. It's okay. Obsidian stone will do. Obsidian skull is even better. Okay, then we enter shadow. Meaning, show me what I'm ready to see, reveal only what I'm prepared to hear. Which means now you're gazing at the water. You got the candle. I recommend you darken the room. You might put mellow music on. Way up in the top, I mentioned that you could use incense. Patchouli, myrrh is known for cleansing, calming. Then you have lavender and rose for healing, and to purify, you use sage, pine, salt. So you got the incense going, you got the water, the candle. It's dim. You called your ancestors. Now, we're working with shadows. Okay, you place it in your heart, and you say, I witness you. I will not abandon you. And you hold the gaze at the skull or between the water, and you start to release and let what rises up. Okay? Feel your ancestors around you. Walk with me on this continued healing now. Again, we go back to our core questions. If they're relevant to you, what emotions are you suppressing and why? You ask it in your head, and you let the answer rise up. What do I judge in others that reflects something in me? What childhood wound still shapes my reactions? Usually those are mother wounds, father wounds. Doesn't have to be some horrible molestation thing. Sometimes dad was just too stern at times and didn't know. Sometimes mom was too protective or suffocating or whatever. They happen. Whatever happened, it happened. But we now have to let it go. Many times you have to say, see it with adult eyes, realize the limitations of parents, limitations of people, forgive them, and let the forgiveness flow through you so you're not carrying anger, unnecessary anger. Boom. Okay. So you would do that, you would breathe. Now, if you are doing that, you can hit me in the chat and let me know. I would put the music on for you. But this is just a lesson on how to do it. And Sunday night's a good night to do it. Saturday night too. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. You can also put an Eshu application in here. If you have Eshu or a relationship Eshu, you say Eshu, clear deception, block interference, let only truth pass. Okay. This is straight from the script. You know. Boom, boom, boom. And so we've activated it. We've got Eshu, you know, making sure things are clear. We've got ancestors supporting us. We're walking through shadow. We're showing you when you're ready. You're talking to your heart. The ancestors are walking with you. Then whatever comes up, comes up. You ask your questions. The questions are wonderful. I will give you a little bit more of the questions because since you're in that mindset, I will say another set of the questions are things like, actually, let's play a set of them and see if it works. See how it sounds. I'm going to play them all automatically. Let's see, does any of that resonate with you?
One, is there a hidden fear influencing my decisions right now? Comment, helps identify fear-based avoidance or hidden triggers. 2, is this emotional pattern coming from childhood or early life? Comment, determines whether a pattern is rooted in early life imprinting. 3, is someone else's energy or influence affecting my thoughts or behavior? Comment, reveals internalized voices, cords, attachments, or old relationship imprints. 4, is my ego protecting me from a truth I need to face? Comment, tests if self-protection is blocking honest awareness. 5, is this wound connected to shame I have not acknowledged? Comment, shame often hides beneath anger, numbness, and procrastination. 6, is this current issue a repeating karmic or ancestral pattern? Comment, useful for ancestral, karmic, or generational pattern detection. 7, is my intuition trying to warn me about something I'm avoiding? Comment, distinguishes intuition from anxiety or avoidance. 8, is this situation teaching me a lesson about boundaries? Comment, boundaries are usually the first place the shadow leaks through. 9, is my shadow asking for compassion rather than discipline right now? Comment, determines whether softness, patience, or forgiveness is needed. 10, is there a part of me that still benefits from holding onto this wound? Comment, exposes secondary gains and hidden payoffs that maintain sabotage. 11, is my perception of this situation distorted by old trauma? Comment, clarifies whether trauma is coloring perception. 12, is the person I'm focused on actually a mirror for my own shadow? Comment, identifies projection, mirroring, and shadow reflection dynamics. 13, is this block connected to something I'm afraid to admit I want? Comment, hidden desires often disguise themselves as avoidance or fear.
So, those are my first go-to set of questions. Like some people, if your life is relatively ordered and you really want to dig deep, you can do shadow work during like this winter solstice, and then there's another set of questions, which I'll just send you an email. That's more questions. And so these questions help you evaluate what your trauma is, or is it even, you're sorting out a feeling. A feeling will come up, a vision will come up, and then you have to ask questions about why, what, how, and does it fit into any of these existing archetypes. There's a lot more. We're going to go into like a second level of shadow discussion where we talk about shadow monsters, which talk about narcissism, egotism. Like these are particular patterns of dysfunction. Another set of the supply patterns more complicated that you could look and see to try to identify in yourself again, or if you're working with a partner, if you're courageous enough that they can identify in you. It's a really challenge to take, good feedback. So those questions frame the process. Once it's done, it's important to close the gate. Thank the ancestors to continue to walk with you in the healing. You extinguish the flame, dispose the water respectfully. Usually you put the water in a plant. Then you have a mini practice after that. So you can journal, but again you go to the questions now, and now we do divination, which is to say, now which divination you want to do is on you. I like shells, so you ask the question, is this emotion pattern come from childhood? You throw the shells. Yes, no, standard OB divination. If you don't, almost everybody can get 4 pennies, right? Some people, they like to do pendulum. You can use a gold chain or a silver pendulum or some kind of a weighted pendulum. So, I like pendulums because you're talking to yourself. You're talking to yourself. So, as long as you get meditatively centered, the pendulum will give you honest answers about your shadow work. That's what so I like the shells though, because in the shells there's another layer of reading if you get good, where you can also see which deity is speaking, which archetypes. There's another layer inside of the shells besides yes and no if you learn how to read the shells well. And that's cool to have. Other side, of course, would be, like we said, tarot. Because if you do tarot, even if you're doing it like yes or no, the commentary is going to be in the letters that come, the characters that come. And what that means to you, and it talks about your inner self, your outer self, that's a little more richer or complicated. I don't recommend that for beginners, but definitely for the advanced work, yeah, that's definitely a good move. Okay, so once you ask your questions and you reflect on the questions, then you ask Eshu, Eshu-guided, seal this work and guard my destiny. This is after you've asked your question and you got the yes or no answers, whatever that means to you. Like if it is a wound from childhood, then what are you going to do with it? Are you going to forgive the person? Are you going to heal them? If they're still alive, you're going to have a conversation. You have to take action. But sometimes a lot of these things are internal. Sometimes you have to let go, which we call recapitulation, which is a practice of letting go people's energies attached to you from long ago. But that's another lesson in itself. But you have your answers and you have them written down with the questions. From there, it's recommended for the next 3 days, you should journal it. Because what you write immediately, you will reflect the next day and see something you didn't know. Most likely, maybe in the morning, or the same time whenever you did your shadowing. Or when you go back to the shrine, you get what we call an echo, and will be an answer to the question you asked yesterday. And again, it's what emotions are surfacing, what came up in the morning when you asked your journal, which type of shadow did it connect to. So those are your takeaways, and you act on them. Okay, so now, for those who came in, except of course Dwight just got here, I saw you. I see you, homie. We can ask questions. All right, hold on. Banto Ingo, who is that? One of these people I don't know. Hello, everybody. Let's talk now. I'm going to stop the recording, and we're going to have a chat.